This is what Eric Holder wrote. As a former U.S. Attorney General, I am reluctant to publicly criticize my successors. I respect the office and understand just how tough the job can be. But recently, Attorney General William Barr has made a series of public statements and taken actions that are so plainly ideological, so nakedly partisan, and so deeply inappropriate for America's chief law enforcement official that they demand a response from someone who held the same office. Last month, at a Federalist Society event, the Attorney General delivered an ode to essentially unbridled executive power, dismissing the authority of the legislative and judicial branches and the checks and balances at the heart of America's constitutional order. As others have pointed out, Barr's argument rests on a flawed view of U.S. history. To me, his attempts to vilify the president's critics sounded more like the tactics of an unscrupulous criminal defense lawyer than a U.S. Attorney General. When, in the same speech, Barr accused what he called the other side of what he called the systematic shredding of norms and the undermining of the rule of law, when he said that, he exposed himself as a partisan actor, not an impartial law enforcement official. Even more troubling and telling was a later and little-noticed section of his remarks in which Barr made the outlandish suggestion that Congress cannot entrust anyone but the president himself to execute the law. Let me digress a moment. I wasn't aware of this, but are you aware of what this useless son of a bitch, useless to constitutional government, but very useful to Trump, what this son of a bitch is saying? Barr? Back to Holder. In Barr's view, sharing executive power with anyone, quote, beyond the control of the president, end quote, presumably including a semi-independent cabinet member, contravenes the framers' clear intent to vest that power in a single person, is what Barr said. This is a stunning declaration, not merely of ideology, but of loyalty to the president and his interests. It is also revealing of Barr's own intent to serve not as a careful remove from politics, as his office demands, but as an instrument of politics under the direct control of Donald Trump. Not long after Barr made that speech, he issued what seemed to be a bizarre threat to anyone who expresses insufficient respect for law enforcement, suggesting that, quote, if communities don't give that support and respect, they might find themselves without the police protection they need, end quote. No one who understands, let alone truly respects, the impartial administration of justice or the role of law enforcement could ever say such a thing. It is antithetical to the most basic tenets of equality and justice, and it undermines the need for understanding between law enforcement and certain communities and flies in the face of everything the Justice Department stands for. Let me digress again. What Barr has been saying makes one of his predecessors. What's his name? Who was the Attorney General until Trump fired him? Sessions. That makes Jeff Sessions look like a goddamn liberal. Back to Holder. It is also particularly ironic in light of the Attorney General's comments this week, in which he attacked the FBI and the Justice Department's Office of the Inspector General, two vital components of his own department. Having spent the majority of my career in public service, I found it extraordinary to watch the nation's chief law enforcement official claim, without offering any evidence, that the FBI acted in bad faith when it opened an inquiry into then-candidate Donald Trump's campaign. As a former line prosecutor, U.S. attorney, and judge, I found it alarming to hear Barr comment on an ongoing investigation led by John Durham, the U.S. attorney in Connecticut, into the origins of the Russia probe. And as someone who spent 6 years in the office Barr now occupies, it was infuriating to watch him publicly undermine an independent Inspector General report based on an exhaustive review of the FBI's conduct, using partisan talking points bearing no resemblance to the facts his own department has uncovered. When appropriate and justified, it is the Attorney General's duty to support Justice Department components, to ensure their integrity and insulate them from political pressure. His or her ultimate loyalty is not to the President personally, not even to the executive branch, but to the people and the Constitution of the United States. Career public servants at every level of the Justice Department understand this, as do leaders such as FBI Director Christopher Wray and Inspector General Michael Horowitz. Their fidelity to the law and their conduct under pressure are a credit to them and the institution they serve. Others, like Mr. Durham, are being tested by this moment. I've been proud to know John Durham for at least a decade, but I was troubled by his unusual statement disputing the Inspector General's findings. Good reputations are hard-won in the legal profession, but they are fragile. Anyone in John Durham's shoes would do well to remember that. In dealing with this administration, many reputations have been irrevocably lost. That is certainly true of Barr, who was until recently a widely respected lawyer. I and many other justice veterans were hopeful that he would serve as a responsible steward of the department and a protector of the rule of law. Virtually since the moment he took office, Barr's words and actions have been fundamentally inconsistent with his duty to the Constitution, which is why I now fear that his conduct, running political interference for an increasingly lawless president, will cause lasting damage. Eric Holder, writing at the Washington Post. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. You have your choice. You can listen to the ranting with the audio podcast or listen and watch me lose control with a video podcast subscription. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.